Yesterday's video we talked about, is Tesla setting up to bounce? The obvious answer today is yes. The question is, what do we do now with it? Yesterday we explained how the MACD on the hourly was starting to curl up and gave us the opportunity that we might see something like this. We also explained this particular pattern, which is a piercing pattern when you undercut the previous bar and then get up 50% in that previous bar. It's exactly what happened. The gap up really took the oomph out of the move, but there are some pretty telling signs here. Subscribe to the channel, click all notifications. What we go over here is very timely, and if you're interested in timely stock ideas, you're going to want to follow along. So what we did is we just gap filled. We went to the previous close on the 23rd and we filled, and then we just reversed from that level. This actually gave us a really good short idea that I executed on today in the Alpha Chasers community. It worked. Level, doji, 3-bar pattern, breaks down again. My goal was that I was really aiming for down here, and we just never really got there, pittering in this area. The question is, what do you do now with it? Hourly basis, and we just draw from the last previous peak. You can actually even see how it could, and you can kind of see this line and the trajectory of this line that's going back all the way to December 8th. Well, all we really did was run into that DTL hourly. Now, DTL is downward trend line. The question is, does it flip that or not? I don't have the answer to that. What I will say is they made life very easy, because this level right here, this 123.57, you might want to remember that for tomorrow. What would happen is if we flip that at the same time, we would cross that DTL. And then we would probably want to just watch how we act at this long-legged doji, which is always a sign of uncertainty, right? And then kind of see if we can work our way up and go from there. Right now into this, I'm actually carrying a small short position from earlier today. I'm comfortable here being short, but it very well could go against me. Flip that 123.57, 128.62 and push. One of the comments I keep receiving is to post more levels. In other words, support and resistance levels. Just understand where you are in the pecking order right here. You can see this level right here, right? 267, guess what you were unable to break all day today? 267. You just couldn't get through it. The top of the long red bar that had the long move down after the previous day close, that also is giving us some issues. So you have this dollar range in here that was really giving us a problem. We had the huge run up, and we're all aware what these huge run ups are. This is all just short covering. When you're moving that far, that fast, that's not accumulation. That's just people panicked to get out. I'd be watching that 268 and just see how you work your way up. If you work your way up, you really want to see if you can get into something like a gap fill, but I don't think that you are going to have that opportunity tomorrow. Personally, we're going to have to see again how this plays out. To me, this is cracked, and I don't think it's going to be as simplistic as we're just going to bottom and just head right back up. We talked pretty extensively about this particular pattern being a pendant, and if you clone those levels, you can see how they fit right in there perfectly, and you can see the rising wedge channels end in tiers. We broke to the downside. Here's your flagpoles we pointed out yesterday. I don't see this as something that is over. We may have gotten a reprieve because it's the end of the year, and we're going to have to talk about the end of the year in this Saturday's video. So make sure you do subscribe, because I'm going to have a whole video on what to expect going into next year. Now, with this level here, we start looking for leadership as to why is it moving. And we drill into the SOX. Well, the SOX did nothing but gap fill. We didn't really have a powerful move. We just essentially gap filled for now, and conveniently were unable to close above that level. Now, did we have leadership in IBB, biotech? We had a rally, but do we really have some leadership there? Once again, there's a downward trend line that we were unable to get above, just like the hourly in Tesla, and just another resistance point like we had on the SOX. If you overlay the 55, the good news is you are back over the 55-day moving average. So this has more potential to actually be something, but we're going to need way more time, and we need to flip that DTL level. Solar space to that 74.20 and unable to clear it. Couldn't even really make a higher high. So where is this leadership going to come from that's going to lift the Nasdaq up? Take a look at the cloud software space, right to that 55 and stopped. So again, we don't have leadership. If you don't have leadership, it's going to be very difficult to run. Now, you have these smaller names that are moving. This is one they were playing in the community today. I didn't frankly get involved till later in the day around here when I saw some really large orders coming in. Saw a huge volume spike on one of my scans. This line going straight across, you can see this pretty clean, right? And if you drill into this on a pre and post data, you can see how we were respecting that level the entire time, even pre and post data all day. And then eventually that's it, it broke and we had huge volume come in. Are these names going to continue to move? Nobody knows. This is the kind of speculative moves that you have towards the end of the year, TGTX. Now, are there real reasons that these stocks should be moving? Sure, but it's very difficult to explain why a stock's going from 7 to 12 and then sitting in these ranges, right? I would say going into next year, some of the biotechs you're definitely going to want to watch. You're going to want to keep watching this MDGL. This was a perfect over and just went. For me, it's just too thin of a name. That is your gravestone. You can see the break from the break of the gravestone all the way down. And we are back up over the 5-day moving average. So closing at the high, you could see a push in this. These kinds of moves, the MDGLs, even those smaller ones we just went over, have the potential to do this. The reason is because towards the end of the year, you're going to see them buy names that they think might be acquired or you might see mergers. These kinds of stocks that have had good recent clinical data fit perfectly into another biotech company. And usually we see these kinds of mergers and acquisitions happen as they get further and further down the line. You see them in the beginning of the year, not towards the end of the year. And the reason for that is tax purposes. So keep that in mind. I'll be watching both of these tomorrow. Apple popped right back over and back into this channel. We're not really sure if that's going to hold in here or not. I do think it's very important to recognize the obvious. That was yesterday's high, 131.03. Apple is 7% of the S&P. If you take a look at the S&P actually closed at a higher high. Apple did not. So we're seeing weakness in Apple. This was not a stellar move in Apple by any stretch today. And it's not like this was the standard, far from it. Take a look at Microsoft. Microsoft hit the higher high and never looked back. Microsoft closed at a weekly high. Now, we still have to get through tomorrow, but here we are on the weekly. Other prominent names like Google, they all closed near the highs. Now, I would like to have seen more follow through on some of these names to see if they were going to continue, but we really didn't get that. We just stopped really up there on some of these other names. We just stopped at previous levels that have been a problem in the past. So I'm really curious how this is going to play out on the semiconductor front. But the larger cap names, we did see some buying coming in. Names that have just been completely beaten down, like Amazon, if you take a look at them, you're flipping over, but you still have these downward trend lines and you're still respecting them. Let me give you an example of this. So here you are in this range and you're just staying right in that range. 84.52 at the end of the day, hits it and rejects. There's very little to say here. These support and resistance lines, they're just being played like clockwork, right? They're flipping from support to resistance and they're working great. So I would strongly suggest that you learn how to do this and draw support and resistance lines. It's extremely helpful. But we're going into next year. So the question is, how active will we be tomorrow? Well, first and foremost, I would expect tax selling on the names that people finally decide that they're going to sell tax for tax reasons. Second, I would be hyper-focused tomorrow on this 383.38 level, right at the top of this wick, because all we did was reject, try to get over, and now even after hours, we're back below it. So we'll see what happens with the futures market today. But we really did not move from 12 o'clock on. We just stayed in a 4-hour range. So I'm not really sure if that's the game plan for tomorrow. You go into next year, you do get an inflow of capital, and I'll explain how that works on Saturday. To join the Alpha Chasers community, there is a link up here in the top right. Simply click on the link and you will be added to the wait list.